But as I said before, today I will be endeavoring to keep her lit, as the gentleman from Northern Ireland told me to do. Keep her lit. That's what he told me to do. I don't know quite what that means, but I'll give it a shot. It's actually an interesting side note in my history. A man from Northern Ireland is the reason I'm actually standing here today in part. One of my former pastor was born and raised in Belfast, and he left to join Her Majesty's Royal Navy and then ended up immigrating to America. But he taught me enough about dispensations and about the Bible rightly divided. He taught me enough to where I saw his system breaking down. And I had to go look farther, and that's when I found people teaching Christ, Romans 16:25, according to the revelation of the mystery. So it's because of that I'm here in a way. So that's interesting. But as we pick up, the offer still stands for the online people watching around the world. If you want a free copy of this booklet, and by free we mean free, correct? Free means free here. I know that's not common in churches, but free actually means free here. We even put the stamp on it and buy the envelope. It's amazing. I will send you a free copy of this. Just email me your snail mail address to info@ohiogracebible.com. info@ohiogracebible.com. And the box we have in the back of these booklets is now the fourth order of these booklets that we've purchased. And it's funny because when I did the first order, thinking, well, how much do we need to restock our supply, and how much do we think people will send in? So my first order I thought would be plenty enough. So we're now on the fourth order. And it's because of you all supporting it financially, and people, like I've told you, that have sent in financial support. We have the money to keep sending them out, and that's great. So as the last time we looked in this booklet, we saw the topic of the abundant life. And we went through the abundant life. This week we're going to move on to an even more controversial topic. You looked ahead in the book, didn't you? Yeah. You saw what's up this week? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to open people's eyes to what the Bible actually says. And there's more to the Bible than the red letters. And by the way, you haven't read the red letters close enough, because you're missing a lot from the red letters. You haven't realized yet that Jesus said he wasn't talking to you in the red letters. Oh, well, that's my favorite part of the Bible. That's the only part of the Bible I've ever heard a sermon from. What do I do now? Find the black letters. The Lord Jesus Christ made an unprophesied, unscheduled stop from heavenly places and came to his worst enemy, Saul of Tarsus, and saved him and gave him a job to do. The fact that you've never heard about that is not God's fault. It's been in the Bible a long time. And it's funny, I tell you, I get these wonderful compliments, and I get spleen vented on me through the internet. Yes, it's the amount of rage and anger and hate where you almost feel like you have to wipe off the computer screen after you read it. And it's one or the other. And I just want to tell the folks that think, they send me an email, they think this is an amazing series. I can't believe I've never seen this in the Bible. Thank you so much. Don't be surprised when your friends and relatives don't agree that this is an amazing series and a wonderful booklet. Do not be shocked. And here's why. We talk about this on our Thursday nights, that people are trained to have a nothing to see here, move along attitude when they come to their Bible. When you show them, like because Keith was making fun of me, see, when you show them verses that are opposite, they go, nothing to see there, move along. That's the attitude. God's ways are just a mystery. You ever hear that one? I told you to turn to 1 Corinthians 4:1, right? We just can't know these things, Steve. There's no contradictions in the Bible. We just don't understand. God's ways are above our ways. We can't understand these mysteries. You've all heard it? I've said it. Yeah, you've said it too. Well, what do we do then with 1 Corinthians 4:1? Let a man so account of us as the ministers of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is optional in stewards. Moreover, it is suggested. No. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. Oops. It's just a mystery. We can't know. Hello? How long ago was that written? Last Tuesday? 1 Corinthians? Oh. So the secret's been out for a while. And we're walking around going, oh, it's just a mystery. You're not a faithful steward. And that's what we're trying to learn here. That's what was taught to me, was the mystery of Christ. I'd read through the verses. It's been all there, but I never looked. What do you say? Read? Really read? Yeah, I never really did that. But people have that mentality of nothing to see here, move along, or you people must be wrong because I've never heard of that. That's the attitude. I had it happen to me this week. I was telling the folks on Thursday night, I was talking to a very intelligent, thoughtful man. And he was the same thing. It's just a mystery. God's ways are above our ways. I was talking with him about the gospel. What do you do with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John where no one preaches the cross for anyone's salvation? I told you, quote Matthew 10 to him, quote Matthew 16. They're out preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Matthew 16, Peter doesn't know a thing about the cross, and when he finds out, he tries to stop it. And then I say, well, then Paul comes along and says, the gospel is the death, the burial, and the resurrection. We trust that, and God saves us. What do you do with that? And his answer was, it's just mysterious. God's ways are above our ways. That's like, time out. I'm not talking about some 5th or 6th level doctrine here. We're talking about salvation. Amen. That's pretty much number one, right? Most important priority for me is for me to get saved, and then all of you. And this man is a smart man, but that was his first reaction. It's just a mystery. We don't have to. No, this is important. We need to know we must be faithful stewards of the mysteries of God. So I only bring that up to tell you all, be ready for that. Be ready for that kind of response. Be patient. Be kind. Don't be mad. But you're telling people something they don't know. And when they hear about it, they think it's weird. And when you show them, their first response is they want to unsee what you've shown them. Nothing to see here, move along. Don't be surprised if they don't want to talk to you about it anymore. Because a lot of times what happens is you sow a seed, you show them Bible verses, they don't like it, and they're done talking to you. For now. But they may come back and say, I was reading 6 months later, a year later. So just be ready for that. And remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. One of the stupidest sentences I've ever heard in my life. Let me translate that for you. This is the Steve translation. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. Any information or wisdom that you have in your life, I don't want it until you prove to me that you like me. Doesn't sound quite as good when you say it like that, does it? I've learned more from people who can't stand me in a lot of ways. So, yeah, don't be that person. Anyways, so we pick up this week. We're on page now 12 and 13 in this booklet. Let me quote, I said this week will be even more controversial. Jesus wasn't talking to you when he gave the Sermon on the Mount. What? That's the only chapters of the Bible I've ever heard a sermon out of before. How can you say that? Jesus wasn't talking to you in the Sermon on the Mount. Now, what happens when you confidently, graciously say that to someone? And how did you get here? You've spent hours and hours and hours of your life looking at verses, comparing Scripture with Scripture, taking notes, making outlines, seeing who was talking, to whom. Is it me? What's the difference between the church, the body of Christ? What's the difference between Old Testament Israel, New Testament Israel? You've done all this work, and you say to somebody, well, Jesus wasn't really talking to you in the Sermon on the Mount. Here's what you say, friend, Matthew 5, Jesus was only talking to the Jews. He told his guys, don't even go talk to the Samaritans. Don't go to Gentiles at all. Just minister to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's what we're doing here. We're confirming the law and the prophets for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's all we're doing. And when you show that to somebody, they say, Steve thinks I should put my candle under a bushel. That's what they think. You know what I'm talking about from the Sermon on the Mount. Don't put your light under a bushel. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. What else is in there? Steve doesn't think I should be a peacemaker. Steve doesn't think I should be merciful. Steve doesn't think I should be pure in heart. What kind of garbage cult stuff is he teaching? Did you say any of that? All you said was Jesus wasn't talking to you there in Matthew 5, Matthew 6, Matthew 7. But that's what they hear. That's another thing to be ready for. You're talking doctrinal and dispensational distinctive, 2 Timothy 2:15, rightly dividing your copy of God's Word. And they are hearing, I oppose righteousness. Did you say that? I oppose righteousness. So tread carefully. And let me state clearly for the record, we who are dispensational, we who understand that Christ appointed Paul to be our apostle, we do not oppose righteousness. Clearly on the record. Should we continue in sin that grace may abound? Does it say hope not after that? Probably not. It says God forbid. Okay, so that's in the record. And I would point out to you, as I do often when we talk about this, we have a higher standard than the law, we who are under grace. The law is, thou shalt not, right? So what do? We get right up to the edge of the thou shalt not, right? As long as I don't go over there, we're good. What's the standard under grace? You're in 1 Corinthians still. Flip forward a couple more pages. Chapter 10. 1 Corinthians 10, 31. 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, that's pretty much everything, isn't it? Whatsoever ye do, do all at least according to the law standards. No. Do all to the glory of God. So the standard under grace is not thou shalt not cross the line. The standard under grace is thou shalt hit the bullseye every time. whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. It's a higher standard of righteousness. So, I said I wouldn't be long-winded. Might have not been completely accurate. Did you call that a lie? I will talk faster. My friend out in Indiana, I told him the first time I met him, I said, when I try to watch your videos on YouTube, I thought to myself, I can't hear that fast. He talks faster than I can hear. All right, Matthew 5. Do you know why they call it the Sermon on the Mount, first of all? Bingo! Genius there in the fourth row. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying. Now the sermon spans chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. Do you know how it ends? I love the ending. Matthew 7, verse 28. And it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine. For he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. And I got to tell you, I can appreciate that. I can't tell you how many times I've stood in a pulpit and looked out and seen faces astonished at the doctrine I was teaching, because it was so different than anything they'd ever heard. So I can appreciate that. I can feel that. And you think about little things like you say something, Jesus wants you to stop tithing. You're not under the law, you're under grace. You give according to as you purpose in your heart. You would not go back and say, I'm going to be under a curse because Christ has redeemed me from the curse of the law. Amen. So don't try to start nailing my Savior back to the cross to get in my back pocket. Right? When you say it, though, people go, what's another one? How about you are saved by grace through faith alone, not of works of righteousness which ye have done. You trust what he did for you, he saves your miserable soul. You don't think you gotta, and then insert the work. How about, Paul is your pattern, not Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Astonished. Here's one that people really don't like. You're worried about healings and signs. God says you need to reckon your flesh dead, because he does. And you're not going to see signs because you're told to walk by faith and not sight. You mean when they ran that sale on Tuesday, that wasn't God telling me to buy the Chevy? I thought it was a sign. Everybody knows you should buy Dodge or Ford. I mean, come on. You don't need God to tell you that. All right, but in all seriousness, though, what is something that is completely missing from the Sermon on the Mount? What Christians say is the most important sermon Jesus ever gave. What is missing from the Sermon on the Mount? The death, the burial, and the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ as payment for anybody's sins is not mentioned in the Sermon on the Mount. Picky, I know, right? Do you suppose Jesus said exactly what he meant to say in the Sermon on the Mount? Or did he mess up and forget a page in his outline? Okay. Is that a minor thing? The gospel of the grace of God is not present in what Christians call the most important sermon in the Bible. Kind of stands out to me. We're taught that the Sermon on the Mount is God's plan for good, rich American Christians to live the good, rich American Christian life and go to heaven. And the gospel's not in it. Oops. You know what I think? I think Jesus wasn't talking to us in the Sermon on the Mount, which is why he didn't deliver our gospel in the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah, I know. I got to take it easy. Now, as I was going through these pages, I said, you know what, we need to park on this. Because 2 pages worth of material is not enough to talk about this. We're going to park on this for a few weeks and talk about this. What Jesus is saying in the Sermon on the Mount is exactly the proper doctrine for prophetic Israel as they receive their Messiah, as they press through their tribulation and get into their kingdom. The Sermon on the Mount has been called many times the constitution of the kingdom. What the rules are going to be in the kingdom with the Lord Jesus Christ ruling and reigning on earth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how these doctrines that Jesus taught are completely opposite in some ways of the doctrines that the Lord Jesus Christ delivered to us. Same Lord Jesus Christ, 2 different audiences, 2 different messages, 2 different doctrines. He said it was all the same. It's missing the cross. The cross is missing, but you know what is in it? Works. Covenant performance. Works and covenant performance. Do you know why then 95% of Christian churches teach works and covenant performance for salvation? Because they haven't read this little booklet. They think Jesus was talking to them in Matthew 5 through 7. What do you do then if you're dealing with your Aunt Sally, your cousin Fred, your child, your parent, whatever? What do you do if somebody thinks that the Sermon on the Mount is their doctrine? How do you show them that maybe they might be incorrect? It's been the same pattern over and over again through this series. You read the words to them and show them, no, you ain't following that, buddy. You are not doing what you say you're doing. Let me quote this booklet here. You read the verses and show them, no, you're not following them. Page 12 in the booklet, quote, Jesus wasn't talking to you when he gave the Sermon on the Mount, which is a very good thing. Huh? Why is it a very good thing? Since you have disobeyed or assiduously avoided most of what he taught in that message. This is good news to you because you're not doing it anyway. You've got an F- so far on following the doctrines in the Sermon on the Mount. By the way, for you NIV people, assiduously, that means you're very careful about it. You're trying very hard to not follow it. Okay. I told you I was going to throw one of those in there this week.
Sorry, I was reading.
Oh, understood. Matthew 5:5. Let's look at these verses. Blessed are the meek. What do they get? Now I want you to think closely on that for a second. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. You just finished singing a rousing rendition of When the Roll is Called Up Yonder. When the roll is called up. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. You've been singing about dying and going to heaven for 20 minutes. Glory! And then the preacher stands up and says, turn to Matthew 5:5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Been singing about going to heaven up yonder. Now preacher says I get to inherit the earth. If I'm meek. The unmeek then would get Cleveland, or Detroit or something. But, I thought my inheritance was heavenly places. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be on the earth. No, there. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Did you ever think about that, though, when you were sitting in church? Amazing grace. Now let's come take the tithe law. You never, okay, here we go. You never think about these things. Who is it in our Bible that inherits the earth? Is there a kingdom? There's some about 12 thrones and 12 tribes, right? That's Jewish. So the Jews inherit the earth, and then all the nations come to Israel to be blessed through the Jews. Oh, yeah, that's pretty much what that part of your Bible's about, right? Is there any such thing as Jew or Greek in the church, the body of Christ? So can they be the same thing? Nothing to see here, move along. I better change that. People are going to think that I'll say no Jewish people can be saved. No Jew or Greek. Blessed are the poor in spirit, this is Matthew 5:3, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. See, you were wrong, Steve. Look at it. It said heaven right there. Heaven. You're wrong. This is when you go, sigh. What is the kingdom of heaven? Does our Bible define what the kingdom of heaven is? Yes. It's the kingdom that comes out of heaven and comes where? Yay! How did we find that out? Oh, we read verses. Matthew 19:23. Jesus said unto his disciples, verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. Verse 28. What is the kingdom of heaven you're talking about, Jesus? Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, while the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. It's the kingdom of heaven coming to earth, according to prophecy, which is why Jesus taught his disciples to pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what the kingdom of heaven is. You want to be astonished at some more doctrine? What is the astonishing doctrine that the Lord Jesus Christ taught us when he was talking to us through our Apostle Paul? Do you know what he taught us? Ephesians 2. Ephesians 2:6. Ephesians 2:6. He hath raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places in Christ Jesus.
Amen.
But then you get the earth later. No, sorry. Verse 7, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace and his kindness toward us through Jesus Christ. Where would that be? Heavenly places. When we meet him in the air, up There shall we ever be with the Lord? The doctrines are different. Does that matter? Nothing to see here, move along. They're splitting hairs over there. What about, we're in Ephesians 2, what about verse 8? For by grace are ye saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. How about Matthew 5? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy, correct? Flip that coin over. Ye who are not merciful shall not receive mercy. You see the performance there? And this says, grace through faith. Do you know what faith is? It's the one thing you can't do. I can do lots of things. I can be merciful, I can be meek, I can be mild, I can be annoying. All these things I can do. But I can't do faith. Faith is, I believe. I can believe if none of my limbs are working, I have no power of speech, and I'm blind. I can believe. Can't do anything if I'm in that state, but I can believe. I can have faith. Those things are different. Does that matter? Nothing to see here. Move along. What about blessed are the pure in heart? What do they get? They get to see God. What if you're not pure in heart? You get to see Cleveland. Does that... Cleveland's actually starting to improve. We're not lighting our rivers on fire anymore. That's a good thing, good place to start. Yeah, Detroit. We can make fun of Detroit now. Those things don't match, though. I have to be pure in heart to see God. That's what Christ said in the Sermon on the Mount. Christ told Paul to tell me if I believe and trust what he did for me, that's how I'll see God when I meet him in heavenly places. One's doing things, following orders, the other is not. Just believe. Does that matter? Matters to me. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. You want to see a real contradiction to that verse? Look over at 1 Timothy 1. The merciful get mercy. Now, when you read the account of Saul of Tarsus, is merciful the first thing you think about when you're reading Saul of Tarsus' threatenings and slaughter at your service? No. So we could all agree that Saul of Tarsus was not merciful. Okay. Let's read this account on how he got mercy. 1 Timothy 1 and verse 13. Who was before a blasphemer and a persecutor and injurious, a.k.a. not merciful. But I obtained mercy. Huh? Well, that's not what Jesus said in Matthew 5. I obtained mercy because I did it ignorantly and in unbelief. So, an ignorant, unbelieving, blaspheming persecutor and an injurer obtained mercy. Huh. What for? What for, Paul? Look at verse 16. Howbeit for this cause. Oh, now we answer the why. This cause I obtained mercy, that in me, 47th, 163rd? 5012th. In me first, Jesus Christ might show forth all long-suffering for a pattern to them which should hereafter believe on him unto life everlasting. How many times did you read that verse in your life and not get it? Paul says, me first pattern. What does that even mean? That means the Lord Jesus Christ started something new with this guy. You can understand that by seeing the doctrines don't match. But when he just comes right out and says it, I'm first of something new. That's what you make a pattern for, don't you? This is the first one. People that come after need to follow the pattern. Nothing to see here. Move along. It's important. And you tell people, I am Pauline in my doctrine. And they go, huh? But it's important. They look at you like you're weird. But you're not. You're following Bible instructions. You've looked at it and said, clearly, Jesus is not doing this program because he just gave the blaspheming persecutor mercy for nothing. Well, not for nothing. To make a pattern. He's concluded them all in unbelief, that he can have mercy upon all. Correct? I'm actually doing pretty good on time. I know the food's starting to smell better and better and better the farther we get away from breakfast.
I like the smell of the word.
All right. The most holy man in the room in the third row. Yeah, you're first in line. All right. What about, we're comparing these doctrines. What about the law? Is the law associated with the kingdom? In Isaiah chapter 2, Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 1. Yeah, turn to that, please. This is a good one to read, because what we're often taught when people are taught Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are talking about the kingdom, and the pulpit presents it as heaven. It is not heaven, and it is not eternity. People still sin in the kingdom. People still die and go to hell in the kingdom. It is not heaven. And it is associated with the law. Israel is always associated with the law. Old Testament Israel and New Testament Israel. Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 1, the word that Isaiah the son of Amoz saw concerning the Presbyterians and the Baptists. Oh. The word that Isaiah the son of Amoz saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. It shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it, and many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God, of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Which is why in Matthew 5, Jesus warns about teaching anyone to break the least of these commandments. Because they're always associated with the law. And what you see here in Matthew 5, 6, and 7 is Christ intensifying the law. You've heard it said of old, thou shalt not commit adultery. I say unto you, in the kingdom, if you look upon a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. A higher standard when God's Spirit is put into Israel and causes them to walk in his statutes and keep his judgments, as Ezekiel 36 is prophesied in Jeremiah 31. But he says in Matthew 5:10, let's go back there. I'm sorry, 5:19. I'm having an issue with one of my contact lenses today. I'm seeing everything kind of fuzzy. 5:19. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So if we're talking commandments under the law, you got the big important ones. Obey the Sabbath, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. What would be maybe, if we're looking at the levels of the law, what would be maybe one of the smaller ones, lower ones? Think of one. 613. Pick one. What if remember the dietary restrictions? What if someone came along and decided, today we are going to have Hassenpfeffer for lunch? You remember Hassenpfeffer in Looney Tunes? When Yosemite Sam was told by the king, make me some Hassenpfeffer. And he didn't know what Hassenpfeffer was. And then he was so excited when he found out it was rabbit stew. So then he went after Bugs Bunny. But what if somebody told you, I think we should have Hassenpfeffer for lunch? What have I just done? Broke the law. Leviticus 11:9, and the hare, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean to you. Jews are not allowed to eat Hassenpfeffer. It's a German word. It's spelled really funny. But I've taught, if I said this afternoon we shall have Hassenpfeffer, I've taught you to break one of these least commandments. Okay, that's clear. So then I get to be the least in the kingdom of heaven then. Okay. I'm not even going to try to spell Hassenpfeffer. No rabbits. What then do you do when none other than a chosen, called, singled out apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ stands up and says, let's eat some rabbits? He must not have read the Sermon on the Mount. Nothing to see here, move along. What about this apostle just comes out and says very plainly, Romans 6:14, you are not under the law, you are under grace, let's eat some rabbits. That's opposite though. That's opposite doctrines. Does that matter? Nothing to see here, move along. What does Paul say about dinner? Does he say no rabbits? 1 Timothy 4:4. Every creature of God is good, and nothing to be refused. Do you know what's under the nothing? Rabbits. You can eat rabbits. You can eat bacon as much as you want.
Hallelujah.
Amen to that.
You can smell it.
So Paul then, well, let's think about this. Paul then either hasn't read this material, doesn't know about that this is the most important sermon in the Bible and this is his doctrine, or Christ gave him different instructions, different doctrines. Either we have a wildly disobedient and ignorant apostle, or we've got different doctrines being taught. I'll go with the second choice. Okay? An apostle violating the Sermon on the Mount. Nothing to see here, move along. I'll close with this one. You know what happens when you say something like that? I have at least 20 to 25 more minutes. Paul says finally, and then goes on for 3 more chapters. You want to teach your friends they're not following the Sermon on the Mount. One way to show them, look at verse 22. Whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of what? The judgment. So you tell your red letter friend, your red letter friend just hears a fine, rousing message from Matthew 5, hops in his car, starts headed for the chicken house, because that's what good Christians do after church. Go to the chicken house. You're driving down a 2-lane road and suddenly somebody, obviously they didn't see you because they pull out super slow in front of you and you gotta hit your brakes. So then you're following them down this 2-lane road, double yellow line so you can't pass. Wonderful grace of Jesus. Then the car in front of you does the unthinkable. 10 miles an hour below the speed limit. Now you're not going to beat the Baptist to the fried chicken house. Well, what do you do in response? Wonderful grace of Jesus. You get as close as possible to their tailgate to let them know, hey, you're going too slow. You're so close now, if they're driving a pickup truck, they can't even see your car. You're hangry right now. And what that is, hungry and angry at the same time. You're hangry. And you're trying to keep your road rage under wraps. Then the car in front of you does something that makes you explode. They're already doing 10 miles an hour under the speed limit after they pulled out in front of you and made you slam your brakes. You're tailgating them. They're clearly not getting the message because they're not speeding up. Then they do the thing that makes you explode. What is that? They slam their brakes, and you have to slam your brakes, and you almost smash into the back of their car. Then, as you explode, you see the driver's door fly open. Oh, well, here we go now. I'm out the car. Driver's door's open for me, and you're stomping towards that car. Let's go. And then the person in the car doesn't even look at you, but walks around the front of their car and is looking at something. And now you're starting to put your dukes away. What is going on? As you get around the front of their car, you see that they just slammed their brakes because there's an injured little animal in the road. And they stopped so they wouldn't smash it. And now they're going to help the injured animal. Well, what did you just do, good Christian, on your way to the chicken house? You were angry at your brother without a cause. You have violated the Sermon on the Mount really hard after you just got done listening to a message about the Sermon on the Mount. You have assiduously avoided following the doctrines in the Sermon on the Mount. Nothing to see here, move along. I was just making sure you were okay. Saw you get out of your car. Nope, now you lied. A lying liar who is angry at his brother without a cause. You have assiduously avoided the doctrines. Jesus wasn't talking to you, quoting the book, in the sermon, when he gave the Sermon on the Mount, which is a very good thing. Because you have disobeyed or assiduously avoided most of what he taught in that message. Does that mean we're preaching against righteousness? Does that mean we're preaching against godliness? No, it means we're rightly dividing the word of truth, understanding which instructions went to which people and which one's me. That's what we're doing, and that is the first of I don't know how many lessons we'll do on page 16 and 17 in this book. Or no, I'm sorry, not 16 and 17, 12 and 13. 12 and 13. That is all I have for today. Does anyone have any thoughts